Job search is actually like a roller coaster ride. There are going to be lots of ups and downs. We have all been rejected by companies in the past. I've been rejected by Google, by YouTube, by LinkedIn, like you name it, I've been rejected. Meta at some point did not even actually want to interview me. All of us have faced rejection. So we carry the scars of it and we have a chip on our shoulder. But that actually brings negative energy into interviews. So what I want all of the people to do is process that baggage that they carry and actually let that go. Things will inevitably go wrong in interviews. You wanted to do some segmentation, you made a mistake. Then you can focus on that mistake or you can actually correct it from there and then go on. So you want that resilience and positive mindset that you need to actually do. So you need to get your mental fitness up. The reason why I got a job at Meta was because I dealt with my baggage. And I'd actually let all of the past go. And I just showed up as a happy person in the interview and then just did the interview as well.
All right, well, welcome everyone. My guest today is Satish. Satish had spent 6 years at Meta, working on AI products and Instagram. And during this time, he's conducted hundreds of PM interviews at Meta and other companies. He's also coached many PMs to level up their product thinking skills. And since leaving Meta, Satish has taught 2 or 3 very popular PM courses. So welcome, Satish.
Thank you for having me, Peter. It's great to finally do a podcast together after having known each other for a few years.
Yeah, great. So why don't we start by talking about PM interviews? Performing well in these interviews, you can literally double your compensation or you can find your dream job through these interviews.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's getting harder than ever to get a PM offer because companies are downsizing. There's a lot of market forces. So why don't we start? Let's start with some of your hottest takes when it comes to PM interviews. Yeah. Do you have any?
So I've done 200 plus interviews at Meta. And one of the things that really shocked me about PM interviewing is that new college grads who were interviewing for RPM positions would crush the PM interview, while experienced PMs who had 10 plus years of experience would actually come and then do extremely poorly in the interviews. And that was something that was extremely shocking for me. Okay, that's one of the things that I find very surprising. Then the second thing that I actually find very surprising is that when people come and ask me for help with interview preparation, the first thing that they ask is, hey, can you do some mock interviews with me? And every time I hear that, I throw up a little bit. Okay. And then the third thing that I've realized about this whole interview preparation process and doing interviews is that most PMs have worked on only 1 to 3 products in their entire PM careers. But then when they go into PM interviews, they could be asked about any product on the internet. And that is something that's an extremely difficult job to do as a PM in interviews. And then finally, most people come to me and then ask me about, hey, I want to show that I'm a much more senior PM. How do I show that I'm operating at a much higher level? And then the thing that people don't realize about it is, hey, can you show that you can handle problems at much higher altitude that are actually at the company level, at the industry level? And that's how you demonstrate that you can operate at a much higher senior level as a PM. Mm-hmm. So those were actually my hot takes on PM interviews.
Yeah, those are some pretty hot takes. So why don't we talk about them? So let's start with the first one. The first one is the people who are fresh out of college or junior PMs actually do better on interviews than the senior PMs. Is it because they just memorize all the frameworks or what? Why do they do better?
So the fundamental thing about PM interviewing is that there are 2 types of ways to interview PMs. One is retrospective interviewing, which was what happened before Google made PMs famous. Before that, whenever you went into an interview, people would try to evaluate your skills by asking questions about your past experience. They would ask you questions like, hey, tell me about a 0 to 1 product that you built. And they would, out of the answers for that, they would try to evaluate what your product thinking skills were what your analytical skills were, and what your leadership skills were. And that is retrospective interviewing. So at that point, people could just dip into their past experiences and then tell the stories that they wanted to. But then after Google started to do prospective interviewing, where they realized that it's hard to evaluate candidates based on the stories that they were telling. So they would just give you a new product scenario and ask you to tell what would you build for this particular space. And that is prospective interviewing. So PMs now have to, on their feet, do the thinking to figure out what products they would build, how they would actually evaluate them, how they would make decisions against those. And that is extremely challenging because you have to be able to take any product in the industry and then be able to answer product thinking questions, analytical thinking questions. And that requires a lot of preparation because none of your past work is actually going to help you enough with actually like doing this. You might have some skills, but you still need to be able to apply them across a wide spectrum of products. So that's what makes PM interviewing really hard. So if PM interviewing is that way and it's hard, then you need to actually put in time to prepare for interviews. The new college grads have actually like spent 6 months in groups of people doing practice together to actually prepare for these PM interviews. Whereas senior PMs think like, hey, I've just built successful products, so I can just like walk into interviews and then crack interviews at these top companies. But that just does not work. So you need to actually like put in the work. And then the other part of it that happens is that interviewing by itself is a stochastic process. There's a lot of noise in it. It depends on how you are feeling on that particular day, what questions you get, how the interviewer is actually like feeling on that day, what's going on in all of these things. If they ask you a follow-up question, how are you reacting to that? So all of these things introduce a lot of noise into the interview process. So if you want to succeed in those kinds of things and you want to increase the probability of being successful, you need to make sure that you have actually built your significant product thinking skills, analytical thinking skills, and prepared for leadership questions. So you are far above the bar that is needed to actually like get into a particular company. So you increase the probability of getting in. So I think that those are the two things that actually like determine the fact that new college grads do much better than senior people who are unprepared.
Got it. So I guess like it's interesting to think about, is that like a feature or a bug, right? Because like, just be honest here, like, is it a good thing that you have to spend 6 months preparing for this interview process? Or is just the nature of the market? Because like, I'd rather spend that 6 months like building good products or like working with my team or doing something more productive.
Yeah. So I actually think it's a feature rather than a bug because a lot of times in our career, we ride waves. So we are working on a particular product and actually like it is working well and you continue to work on those. And then at some point it's hit a plateau and then you want to do something different. Mm-hmm. And when you want to do something different, your past skills may not actually like be enough. You need to, one, have a bunch of additional context about new products that are happening, new changes that are happening. And you want to be able to like apply frameworks and the learnings quickly to a new product space because you don't have a lot of time as a PM once you get into a role to establish yourself. And the first 90 days really matter. So if you're not able to like show that you're competent in a new space in 90 days, you lose the trust of your team. And that's the reason why I think it's really important for PMs to actually build a wide base of product thinking skills that help them move between projects inside a particular company, move across companies, and then ride new waves that are happening at that point in time. So I feel like this is something that is essential for people. For example, when I was at Meta, I worked on 6 different product spaces. And I had fairly good amount of success because of my ability to switch between spaces, ramp up quickly, and then actually do that. And right now, the trend is for senior PMs, senior ICPMs. And the key skill that these senior ICPMs have is that you can take them from one space, put them in a new space, and they ramp up extremely fast in 90 days and can start producing results. And that's the reason why I think that this is such a critical skill to have. And interviews are actually like a good way that you measure whether people have those skills or not.
Okay, so you're saying like doing this stuff can actually help you with your job, obviously. Like it's not just like just for the interview. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, what I realize is that PM interviewing is exactly how I operate at Meta on a day-to-day basis. If you're working on high stakes projects that are high visibility, there is always a new problem that is coming in every few days. And you are figuring out what is the solution to that set of problems in a couple of days, getting exec reviews done, alignment on those things, and then actually executing against that. So you are really doing product thinking on new problems every few days if you're working on high profile projects at a company like Meta.
So let's get like pretty tactical here, right? So let's say I'm working at like a, quote unquote second tier company and I'm a PM and I want to get into like top tier. I want to get into Meta. I want to get into, I don't know, OpenAI if they're stay stable. I want to get into all the good companies. So how do I prepare? Let's say I have like, 3 months. How do you prepare for this stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think overall, I strongly believe that people need to give themselves enough lead time because you get like one shot at any of these companies in like 12 months or 18 months. So you want to take your best swing. So give yourself enough lead time to prepare well. And then the thing that I want people to actually like do is say that, hey, there are 3 areas that you are preparing for: product thinking, analytical thinking, and leadership skills. Companies may call them different things, but they're fundamentally evaluating for those three things. And the core thing is that you need to uplevel your product thinking first. And that actually takes the longest amount of time. So what I ask people to do is prepare a plan for upleveling their product thinking skills. And the way that people can do it is they can actually take 15 different products from different product themes, like one from media, one from marketplaces, one from e-commerce, one from productivity, search. Just take 15 different products and then do writing exercises on them. Spend 4 to 6 hours thinking about, I'm a PM at Google working on search. What would I build? I'm working at OpenAI. What would I build? I'm working at Reddit. What would I build? So writing responses to those helps people develop a mental model for the particular market. And then given that market, where is the current product and where should they be taking that product? And it helps people develop that clarity of thought. So I would ask people to take 15 different products and then do writing exercises on top of that. Helps. And then get feedback from other people. Have a couple of friends look at them and then give feedback on that. Helps improve their quality of product thinking. And then once you actually start doing that, now you can start doing analytical thinking on top of those same products. You can say, hey, how am I going to measure the success of Reddit? How am I going to measure the success of Google search? And then you can start doing different types of analytical thinking questions, which is how do you make decisions using data in some form? You can say, hey, if this metric is going down, what am I going to do? If I'm launching this feature and here are the 3 options, what should I be doing about them? So there are a bunch of different types of analytical thinking questions. I would actually ask people to write written responses for them. Stop focusing on the verbal parts of it, but actually do the thinking and then writing part of it. And that helps you uplevel your product thinking and your analytical thinking. And then once you actually are doing that, the next thing to start doing is plugging in interview communication skills. The fundamental thing that happens is that when you are doing work, you get a lot of time to write down a document, iterate on the document, get feedback from it, edit it multiple times, and then share that with people. But when you are operating an interview, you have one shot of 30 minutes and you have to do the thinking and the communicating with the people. And then you don't write the notes. The interviewer is writing the notes. Whatever the interviewer is capturing is your real answer in their perspective. So that's what really happens in an interview. So if that's what's happening, you need to get better at a certain style of communication. And that communication style involves a few things. It's about separating out thinking time from speaking time. And you have to interlace both of them. And what I mean by that is that you have to take a couple of minutes to first think about, hey, what is the target audience for this product? And then speak only after you have clarity of yourself, and then communicate for 4 minutes. And then come back and say, hey, I'm going to now think about the problems that this segment has. And then in silence, think about it. And then once you have clarity, communicate that. And that is interlacing thinking and speaking. And you have to practice that skill. Otherwise, what happens is that people think out loud. And when people think out loud, it's extremely noisy for the interviewer and they don't know what to capture. So you need to practice that skill. And I ask people to practice that. And once you have practiced that, then you can put it all together and then do a mock interview. Okay, so if you are just focusing on product thinking and analytical thinking, do 4-hour writing exercises first. Then try to shrink that writing time into 30-minute exercises because you want to do speed thinking. Because in an interview, you only have 30 minutes instead of 4 hours. Then practice thinking and speaking and interlacing it together so that the interviewer can take very clear notes. And then build the stamina to do 30 minutes of thinking and speaking interlaced, and that's a full mock interview. And then you want to introduce some antagonistic behavior and ask people to ask some follow-up questions that push you in different ways, and then how do you react to that? So that's the type of preparation that I ask people to do.
Okay, so because you and I are kind of, or at least I'm very allergic to frameworks, but there's kind of like a general approach, right? Like you got to understand, like you said, you got to understand who is the user, what are their needs, what problems do they have. Like maybe you got to like think about like what's the vision of your product, like, and then try to bring some solutions. There's a kind of general approach for some of this product sense in interviews. But I guess what you're saying is that if you actually do the homework to look at 15 different industries, and then in the interview, you get like a random question about like, you know, Facebook Marketplace or something that you didn't work on, then you have more memory to actually get to a good answer quickly because you already did a 4-hour exercise on some other marketplace.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Because there's like common structures for each of these things. Media products, you worked on Reddit, you worked on Instagram, you know that there's actually some structure and some set of problems that are common, even though there's slightly different flavors of that.
Yeah.
And then similarly, marketplaces, if you take Uber and then DoorDash, they have like similar structures and then actually like different similar problems, but different flavors of those problems.
Got it. But how do I know, like, let's say I never worked on marketplace before, right? And I'm doing a 4-hour exercise on what's a good marketplace, like Airbnb. So like, how do I know if I'm doing it right or not? Like, cause I don't have any internal data or anything. Like how should I go talk to customers, or how do I know? Yeah.
So I think there's like two parts to this. One part of it is that this is exactly like the problem that I'm trying to solve with my uplevel your product thinking course, where I'm taking 12 different themes that capture about 40 different market product types. And then I'm trying to give people background information about the structure of those products and actually like what are the common problems that they have, what are the common solution patterns, and actually like showing them how to do 1 or 2 examples of high quality product thinking in each of these. So I'm actually trying to I've created that base material for people so they have common context and an example of what great looks like in each of these. That's like one part of it that I'm trying to do. But then let's say that you didn't have that. What you can actually like start doing is you need to start by reading the S1 of some companies. Okay. So for example, Reddit has a fantastic S1 when they went IPO. If you read Reddit's S1, you can truly understand the underlying strategy for the company. They actually like talk about what are the common use cases like entertainment, education, community, and commerce, like fundamentally like 4 things that you're solving for. Here are the competitors when you look at it from those different use cases. And actually like here is what the DAU looks like. Here's what the MAU looks like. You actually like start to understand that Reddit has high MAU but low DAU. So actually like getting people to use it more frequently is actually like a challenge for Reddit in some form. And then actually like Reddit has only like 35 million US DAU and 35 something million international DAU. You start to actually get all of this context about a particular company. And then they actually like explain a lot of the problems that they have, what the product strategy is, and where they're actually taking the company. So if you just read that, you can actually like build enough context and then write your own 1-page summary about a particular company. And then you can say, okay, hey, if the company is here today, if this is the challenges that they're facing, where would I take this? And then you can actually like start to see that. You know what the existing strategy is. Then what else can you build on top of that? So that's like a most common way to do it. Read Instacart's S1. Fiji Seymour wrote a fantastic like S1 for Instacart. Not only does she explain Instacart's product strategy, she explains the grocery industry to people. You're not going to get a better explanation of the grocery industry than actually like what's in Instacart's S1. So that's like a great place to actually start reading and then figuring out where the product industry is going. Then the other thing to do is actually like listen to founders and CEOs interviews. Zuck, for example, if you listen to Zuck's podcast with Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan, you can, and then actually like Dwarkesh, you can understand what his AI strategy is. He's literally been telegraphing what Meta's AI strategy is for like 2 years now. And that's exactly what he's building. And he's telling you that if you listen to Amazon CEO, he actually talks about looking at like fulfillment centers as primitives. How do you think about primitives for fulfillment? So he's explaining how he thinks about the business. So if you listen to the podcast of these leaders, you start to actually understand how they view the business. So that's how you actually start building a foundation on top of which you can build.
Okay. So most of the 4 hours or like at least half is like spent actually doing research, not just like randomly making stuff up. Yeah.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. And what I tell people is that if you are seriously thinking about interviewing for a company, it's not 4 hours, it's 20 hours of research I ask you to do. Like do 20 hours of research about a company and write your 2 or 3 page context, because without that context, you can't actually like simulate yourself as a PM for the company. Interviews are trying to simulate what would you do as a PM in that company. And if you were trying to wear that coat of a PM for that company, you at least need to do 20 hours of context research for the company that you're interviewing at.
Yeah. I think for the companies that, like that you really want to land a job in, right? Exactly. It makes sense to do like 10, 20 hours of research. Exactly. Like, for Roblox, I like you said, I listened to the CEO talk on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like did all the research, read all the earnings reports. And I think just doing that, like a lot of information sinks in, and then you almost start talking like the CEO. You start using like the values and the stuff that the CEO talks about. And then like what I found on the other side is that those are the exact values that a lot of companies use to evaluate you as a candidate,
Exactly.
So that's actually really important because like, for example, Roblox has a value of take the long view. And like, I learned that by listening to the CEO just talk about products. And then I try to reflect that in an interview process, like examples of when I took a long view, or like try to bring that up in the product example. And they're like, oh, this guy knows about taking a long view.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it works. Yeah.
There's like one interesting thing that I wanted to add on top of this when we're talking about context. So
Yeah.
I think like you've talked about frameworks. I think fundamentally, like I'm about simple frameworks applied rigorously. I think that's what actually like I believe in. So frameworks are kind of like a checklist for the work that you need to do, so that you actually like get to good answers. So that's a mental model that I have. So I'm not about complex frameworks. I'm not about actually like unique frameworks that are out there. I just want simple frameworks. For example, when I'm talking about this context thing, I want people to understand why you need to understand so much context about a company. And I break it down in a simple way. I say that, hey, at any point in time, there are consumer mindset shifts that are happening, and there are technology changes that are happening that are going to create value creation opportunities and value destruction risks for a company. And if you don't understand the consumer mindset shifts and the technology trends, you're not going to be able to like understand what the value creation opportunities and risks are for a company. And then the second thing is that you want to understand the power structure of the companies that are playing in a particular market, because that determines what is the value capture dynamics at play. So there are value creation opportunities in play, but different players, because of their market position, can capture different types of value. And you want to really understand that. And that's what doing all of this context work is about. And if you are thinking about actually like a company CEO, what are they trying to do with investments? They're trying to figure out which value creation opportunities do I double down on, and which value destruction risks of my company should I be protecting against temporarily. And that's fundamentally what is the motivation for a company to invest in a space. And I'm just asking people to do the context work, as you are saying, to start thinking like the CEO of their company.
Yeah. When you say something like level up your product thinking, right? Like clear product thinking skills, right? Like, I think there's an approach where you're like, oh, like I have all these like secret frameworks and techniques that like, like I'm not going to tell you unless you take my course. But I guess the real value here is actually just learning about the actual work, right? Like learning about the actual industries, learning about like who are the customers, like the actual business. It's not, I feel like, that's my opinion. I feel like there's no like secret framework here. You just like, you need to.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agree. So for example, like I did a 3-hour free session on the entire frameworks for my product thinking course, because I'm like, hey, the frameworks are extremely simple. The real challenge isn't actually like developing enough context about a particular space and then figuring out how do you apply simple frameworks to different types of problems. And that's the really challenging part. Like, hey, doing segmentation on the surface is pretty simple. Okay, you want to figure out what factors determines whether people have similar problems, similar incentives, and are connected. Okay, that's what segmentation is all about. But doing segmentation for 15 different problems is extremely hard. And how do you actually like learn to do that? By actually like practicing it and then getting feedback from people about what segmentation actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So the framework is simple, but application of the framework is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, I get it. You're basically trying to get people experience across these verticals without them actually being a PM on these verticals.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm actually like trying to do. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about, okay, so this happened to me, right? Like in like a past interview, I said all my spiel, did all the great things. And then I got the offer, but the offer was like one level below what I expected. So like, why does this happen? And like, how can PMs try to avoid this happening to them?
Yeah. So I think that there's like two parts to leveling. One part to leveling is that at this point in time, most of the top tier companies have some comparative leveling based on different companies. So they have these like models where, hey, if you worked at Yelp and if you were a GPM and then at Meta, you're probably going to be like an IC6. If you were like a VP at Yelp, you're probably going to be some level at Meta. So I think that these comparative tables actually like exist in all of the top tier companies. I think that there's like a mental model for that. So your past role does actually like determine to a major extent what your current leveling is going to be when you actually get into a new company. Okay, that's actually like one part of it, because your company has a lot of experience with you and they're valuing you at a particular level. So that is like a proxy for most companies. That's like one part of it. Then the second part of it is, what does level actually mean? Level means what is the complexity of customer problems and business problems and leadership that you're able to like demonstrate at any point in time. At that point in time, what complexity of customer problems, business problems, and leadership are you able to like demonstrate in a company? And how do you actually like demonstrate that in an interview? You do that in two ways. You do that when you're talking about the products that you want to build. So I call this the altitude of problems that you're actually like solving. So for example, if you're actually like thinking about dating, you're interviewing with Tinder and you're actually like talking about dating. So the lowest level of actually like picking a problem is how do I improve the photo selection flow in profile creation? That's the lowest level that you can actually get at. Then you can say, I want to improve the profile page of the person. You can say, I'm going to improve onboarding flow, the entire onboarding flow. Then you can say, I'm going to improve how matching happens on Tinder. Or you can say, I'm going to exchange how women experience dating on Tinder. That's like a much larger problem. It cuts across the entire app. Or you can say, hey, dating for young people is completely broken. It's become all about hookups and no app is actually like working well. We need to redefine what dating looks like online. And I want to solve that problem. That's an industry level problem. Okay. So based on what level you're actually like picking problems to solve, you actually like show a different level of PMing. And then your ability to start a high level problem and then still be able to like break it down very well and get down to the problem that people really have and actually then articulate a solution to that particular problem is what determines how complex of a challenge you can tackle in 30 minutes of time. Okay. If you are really senior, you can start at a super high problem and you can get down to a specific solution. If you are not that, what happens is that people start meandering in between and then never converge. And that's how you start to like sign in to people what your true level is.
Yeah, I love that example. I think the risk, of course, of starting at a super high level is like you said, like if you only have 30 minutes and you start at the, how to build a new dating app level, then you might maybe only cover the problems and you might never get to the solution. Like that's exactly. The risk, right? Yeah,
exactly. And what I've realized is that, Peter, is that all of us have been there where when I was starting off my journey as a PM, I would actually like pick the lower level problems. I would say, hey, I want to improve profile because actually like profile sucks. You should be able to like describe yourself better. And that was totally fine. But as I grew in my PM career, I built that muscle of being able to like pick a large problem, break it down fast, and then actually like go down one path of a tree and then converge quickly. And like all of us, as we have grown senior, have gotten better at picking higher problems and then converging. And that's how it works.
And maybe like just like checking with your interviewer, obviously building that rapport is really important too, right? You become better at that too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing that I want to talk about is the leadership part of it. How do you communicate your leadership style from your past experiences in an interview demonstrates what level you are. So there's this like interesting part that you want to actually like demonstrate in a leadership interview where you want to demonstrate that you proactively identified problems or opportunities and you got people behind it and then actually like got something accomplished. So the proactiveness part of it, how you speak about it, is very different between actually like if you were an IC5 versus actually like an IC8 in some form, right? So when I was an IC5, I was clearly saying, hey, somebody chose a problem, gave the problem to me, and I actually like went and crushed it. I crushed it. It was really good, but I didn't identify the problem. But then actually, like as I was more senior, I'm like, hey, I saw this opportunity and I got people to actually like see it and get behind it. And that's the other way that people actually are communicating their level in some form. That's like one way of communicating how senior they are, because senior PMs are identifying opportunities and then getting people to go behind them. The other thing that actually like people communicate is how their relationship with their peers and their leadership. So more junior people complain about their leaders, how leaders are getting in the way, how their teammates are getting in the way. And they do that even in interviews. Whereas more senior people are like, hey, leaders have their perspective. And it is my job to figure out how to align the problems that I'm seeing with my leaders' priorities and communicate it in a way in which they get it. And that's how people are talking about it. And you can see that tonal difference in how senior people are based on how they talk about their relationships. So those are like the two ways in which people like signal in what true level they are at in interviews.
Got it. That's actually really good advice. Even if your story is like, the product failed, like how you tell it, like, did it fail because like, you try to make it grow and it didn't work out and like some leader can't cancel on you? Or did it fail because you canceled the product yourself because you realized it wasn't the right product? Like those are two very different stories.
Exactly right. You take accountability for it. You actually like show that, hey, I learned something. The company's learned something as a result of my work on it. and you want to
Yeah.
like focus on that.
And let's talk about like, let's say you actually get a bunch of offers, and like, one offer has a director title from a smaller company, and another offer is like from Facebook. It's like at a lower level.
Yeah.
Like how do you figure out where to go? Do you have any thoughts about that?
So I'm going to share my personal perspective, and then actually like I'm going to share about, okay, what is generic advice? Mm-hmm. So I think before Meta, I had not experienced working at a company like Meta. So for me, I think that it was a no-brainer to actually like join Meta irrespective of level, because there are like a few different parts to it. One is that if you look at the entire industry, you get higher leverage out of your time by working at the most successful companies. So, and what I mean by that is that you have more impact because you're working on more important problems for more number of people, and you are working with more talented people in some form, and you actually like learn what great looks like. I didn't understand the velocity of engineering until I actually like worked at Meta. I didn't understand the velocity of design until I actually like worked at Meta. I didn't understand the velocity of user research until I actually like worked at Meta, because designers would actually like just do prototypes. They won't actually like do wireframes. Like I worked in teams that actually like they'll just straight up do prototypes, and it would be shocking to see how quickly they would actually like do that. User research, they would actually like take complex problems and actually like give you research reports in like a couple of days. So working with those world-class people shows you what it actually like looks like. And then compensation is also like tied to the company's success. So a small set of companies actually like have outsized growth in their stock value. Like the top 7 companies have actually like made up whatever like the majority of the stock market value growth. So if you work at one of these companies, your compensation is going to grow exponentially anyway, even if you start at a lower level, because the overall company is going to do well. So my bias was that at that point in time, it was very clear that I should have actually like taken an offer at Meta, or actually like if I like got into a few other companies, I should have actually gone and taken that. If I was just giving generic advice to people, I would actually like tell them that, hey, think about your career as a portfolio of bets. Like Mark Andreessen's advice. At any point in time, you're going to actually like have some number of investments to make in your career. Some of them need to be more medium risk, medium reward bets. Some of them needs to be high risk, high reward bets. And you want to choose what point in your life are you going to place different types of bets. So for the first 8 years of my career, I'd actually like worked as an early employee at a startup that did not pan out. So it was a high risk, high reward bet that didn't pan out for me. And at that point in time, for the next 12 years, I actually like took a series of medium reward, like medium risk, medium reward bets. I worked at Yahoo, I worked at Yelp, I worked at Meta. And all of them eventually actually like gave me enough of a reward that now I'm placing a high risk, high reward bet on myself doing my own startup. So that's a mental model that I have for people. Like take different portfolio of risks based on what your life stage is. Early in your life, you can take one set of things. You have kids, you have a different risk profile that you need to like manage. That's a broader advice that I would give people. The second advice that I would give people is that it really helps to have some brands on your name. Okay, so get some brands on your name at some point in your career, because that is actually like what will open the doors for you. And you don't need every single label, but you need a couple of them that actually open the doors for you. When days get tough, when you have failure, the brands actually open doors for you. So that's the second thing that I'm going to say. Then the third thing I'm going to say is that work with some world-class people, whatever that environment is, because you want to learn what world-class looks like across different functions. Because once you know that, you can set that bar whichever company you're at. So I think that's my broad advice for people with respect to actually picking roles. So I'm giving a framework for people, and based on their life situation, they should actually choose what is the right thing for them at that point in time.
Yeah, it is true that like I don't like to, even though I've kind of done it, I don't really like just to like try to collect the company brands. But it is true that like, the fan companies and the well-known companies have top talent. That's probably the biggest benefit, right, of working at these companies. Like the compensation is great. The biggest benefit is you just get to know a lot of really highly qualified, talented people. I think that's
exactly.
Even if like, there's some bureaucracy and there's some bullshit in there, but like in general, like if you go to a startup, like the talent could be totally hit or miss, right? Like
exactly. Exactly. And in some form, Peter, what you want is actually like, let's say, for example, now I'm taking risk of starting my own company. If this goes well, great. But if this does not go well, like I have like some fallback plan where I have some set of sponsors at Meta who actually like would be happy for me to come back and then join their team. And that is actually like a great place to be. And that's a reason why some of these things actually like matter in long careers, because you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And when actually like you're down, who is going to actually give you a hand.
Yeah. And like, I think one thing that I wish I've done is, and I'm trying to do it now through these interviews, it is like, I've worked at many different companies. At each company, there's like a handful of folks that like I really respect, that like I really learn from. And I wish I did more actively like kept in touch with some of them. Cause like I know people who just like, they found who they really mesh with and they just decided to work with them for like 20 years. And like, that's a great career.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are like a few people at Meta who had like profound impact on me. And it's because they invested time in me. So I'm going to actually call out those people like Chris Truhar, who was actually like a VP on the Facebook app, invested so much time in me. And actually like he helped me uplevel my product thinking. Okay. Like he would literally like give me feedback on my documents. I would watch him edit his documents. And from that, I would learn how to write better. And then there was this other person, Mickey Rothschild, who's now actually like the VP for trust and safety across the company. And he reports into Naomi Glide. And he, during US 2020 elections, would actually like sit with me between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. and show me how he would reframe problems, how he would actually like edit the slides differently, how he would tell a story better. And he had like such a profound impact on me. And like every time I teach my classes, I mention him and then I send him a text saying, hey, Mickey, I just told you what impact you had on my life. And basically that's something that I keep doing. And then he would just like call me, hey, do you want, and then every few so often he sends a message saying, hey, are you ready to come back?
That's pretty funny. That's perfect. That's actually, I'm glad you mentioned those folks. Like, so I'm not close with this question, dude. Like, Meta has like an army of PMs, right? So like, how did you make these people like actually give a shit about you and like give you this kind of like personal guidance? Like, how did you? Yeah.
I've thought about this because there's this like common quote that people have, which is you need sponsors who are going to like speak well of you when you're not in the room or whatever it is, right? So my take on that is become someone who people want to sponsor. Okay. And the way that you become someone that people want to sponsor is by solving complex problems for people. Like the reason why these people invested time in me was because I had earned their trust that I could solve complex problems for them. And as a result of that, what happened was that I was working on problems that were their top priorities. So when somebody is working on their top priorities, then they have more time to invest on those problems. As a function of investing on those problems, the byproduct is that they were investing time into me. So Mickey was trying to make sure that US 2020 elections work was happening at a really high bar and at the pace that it needed to be done. And he was investing in that problem. I was just attached to the problem. As a result of that, I got insane amount of coaching from him. And similarly with Struhar, it was the same thing. There was a set of navigation problems that were there in the Facebook app at that point in time, super critical to him. Those were his P1 problems. And I was attached to those problems. So he actually like invested time into me to actually like coach him. And that's how you actually like get time from senior leaders. Yeah. Earn the right to work on their top problems. And if you're working on their top problems, you actually like get feedback from them. Similarly, the third one was interesting was there was this lady who was Pavni Divanji who came in to lead Instagram Youth. And she would have weekly reviews with Adam Mosseri. And I was the first PM on her team. So I was setting up that org for her in some form. So she would actually like give me coaching on the review decks because I was doing multiple reviews with Adam every month. So that's how you earn time from senior leaders.
Okay. So it's not just like, hey, can you grab coffee with me? It's more like you gotta get a sign on the stuff they actually care about, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Earn the right to work on the projects that are top priority for them. And if you do that, they're going to invest time into the projects. And as a result of that, they invest time into you.
Like, how do you earn the right by like just asking them for a project, or do you have to be like, hey, I did a good job on this other project, so you should give me this?
So what typically happens is that anytime you join a team, you actually get the shittiest projects on the team.
Yeah.
So the thing is that how well do you work on the shitty projects? You have to like show that you're willing to hit a really high bar on the projects that seem small on the surface. And by doing that, you actually like get more complex projects on the team. And you do those more complex projects. And in one cycle, like 6 to 12 months, you actually like then earn the right when they're doing a new planning cycle. You are the one who actually has demonstrated that you're very competent. So you get those higher order projects. And that's typically how it works. So when people get these like small projects, they look down upon those projects. Instead, show that you have to earn the right on that particular team. So, and then go earn that right on the team.
Yeah, I love that advice. Yeah, I think that's like super on point. And also like you kind of have to stay out of the company for a little bit, Can't be like me, I leave after 2 years. You got to stay longer to actually earn the right. Yeah.
Exactly. And then once you actually like build trust with one leader, if that leader goes to a different org, you can move with that leader, and then you can get the best projects on that team. And that's the other thing that people do. They've earned trust with a leader and they move with that leader. And then as the leader moves, these people get the best projects on that. And then the senior ICs actually like start reporting it to people who are more higher and higher in the company.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. So let me wrap up. So we talked about interviewing, we talked about growing the company, we talked about product thinking. Like, why don't you give my audience like 3 tactical steps that they can take next? And all, one of them can take your course, but like you gotta give me 2 other steps.
Yeah. So I think what I want people to do is understand that deliberate practice is the thing that is necessary to grow skills. Okay, there's no secret sauce. There's literally no secret sauce. It's about doing the common things in an uncommon way by like practicing it 100 times. Everybody knows that if you lift weights and there's good form, you actually like will gain muscle. That information by itself does not give you muscle, but actually going to the gym for 30 days in a row and doing that thing is what gives you the muscle. Okay, and that's the same thing with product thinking. And that's what I try to get people to do. So you don't have to take my class. What you really need to do is put time blocks on your calendar and actually like say, hey, every Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to do 4 hours of product thinking and take one company's problem at a time and actually like do that. Okay, so if you do that for 2 months and you go through the process of reading a company's S1, 10K, understanding the context and doing the problems, you are actually going to uplevel your product thinking. Spend 8 weekend days, 4 hours each of those weekend days, do 8 problems, and it's going to uplevel your product thinking. So that's like one actionable thing that I want you all to do. Okay. Mm-hmm. The second thing that I want you all to actually like do is write down your own career arc. And what I mean by that is that if you worked on a few products in your life, you're going to actually like start seeing different things that you've done. So for example, you might actually like be good with personalization products. You have actually like an arc of personalization products. You might have an arc of consumer products. You might have an arc on monetization. Figure out what are the 2 or 3 arcs that exist in your career at any point in time. If you work for longer, you have more arcs, but you want to identify that very clearly. And then take all of your impact stories and write them in terms of those career arcs. So for example, I can market myself as a recommendation systems PM. And I can take some of my stories and then say how I'm good as a recommendation PM. I can take some, and then I can market myself as a consumer products PM. I can take some of the stories and then do that. I can market myself as a monetization PM because I can choose some of those stories and I make that. Figure out what your arcs are and create those resume variants that are actually around those arcs. Okay, people tell you to customize resumes for a company. Don't customize for a company. Customize your resume for the arcs that are inherent in your resume, in your narrative. And from that, go find the companies that actually are going to match up with those narratives. I think that's the second tip that I'm going to give people. And the third thing that I'm going to tell people is that, hey, job search is actually like a roller coaster ride. There are going to be lots of ups and downs. And the other thing is that we have all been rejected by companies in the past. I've been rejected by Google, by YouTube, by LinkedIn. Like you name it, I've been rejected. Meta at some point did not even actually like want to interview me. Okay. All of us have faced rejection. So we carry the scars of it and we have a chip on our shoulder. But that actually brings negative energy into interviews. So what I want all of the people to do is process that baggage that they carry and actually like let that go. That's like one part that I want people to do. And the second thing is that things will inevitably go wrong in interviews. Okay. In the interview process, you wanted to do some segmentation, you made a mistake. Then you can focus on that mistake or you can actually like correct it from there and then go on. So you want that resilience and positive mindset that you need to actually like do. So you need to get your mental fitness up. And I recommend a bunch of exercises that people can do around that. You can just do breathing exercises. You can do journaling to actually deal with these things. You can take like positive intelligence course by Shirzad or any of these people, but get your mental fitness up. So I think that those are my 3 tips. Do deliberate practice on product thinking examples. Understand what your career arcs are and then write them down very clearly. And third is get your mental fitness up because actually like that is super critical in showing up in your best self. Like the reason why I got a job at Meta was because I dealt with my baggage and I'd actually like let all of the past go. And I just like showed up as a happy person in the interview and then just did the interview as well.
That's really important. Like manage your energy, manage your mood, especially as a
Yeah.
PM, because if you have a crappy mood, you're going to affect the rest of your team.
Exactly.
So yeah. And where can people learn more about you or like find your courses? Where can
So
we find
I
Patrick?
am on LinkedIn, Satish Mummareddy, and then I teach on Maven, and I teach three courses: Uplevel Your Product Thinking, PM Interview Bootcamp, and I teach a course on Influence Without Authority.
Awesome. Yeah, I think just to give a shout out to Satish's courses, I think from this interview, what his courses are not going to promise you like a magic pill. They're going to put you through the work to actually improve your skills. But you're going to have to put in the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what is really interesting, Peter? The thing that I want to talk about is that there are people who have taken the Uplevel Your Product Thinking course 3 times and have shown up for 100 plus practices. And the reason why they show up is because they see that their clarity of thought is actually getting better, and they buy into the thing that you just said, which is, hey, there's no magic pill, I have to put in the work. And they bought into that, so they actually like show up. There was this one person who took the course the first time in Feb. 30 days in, he had found a job. He was on a visa. He was laid off. He needed to find a job. He got a job and actually like showed up for the next 30 days and did not tell me about it. And he sends me a day at the email at the end of 60 days saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I got a job 30 days ago, but I kept showing up because it was helping me improve my clarity of thinking. And that's what I'm super proud of, that there are a set of people who have like bought into it, that it requires work and are willing to put in the work and actually like who are showing up. And that's what actually like keeps me motivated doing it.
Yeah, you unlock their intrinsic motivation. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Cool, Satish. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. This is awesome.
Thank you, Peter.